15th, 2022. Please rise and salute the flag. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Woodowski. Councilman Niles.
Here.
Supervisor Medina.
Here. This meeting was called, it's just a workshop meeting to discuss on how we can move forward on the uses of Airbnbs and those type of places in our community. We've been all researching other towns and reading a lot about. Most of them have a pretty much temperate plate. They all, some of them different, a little bit here and there, but they all have the general rule and idea of protecting the owner of the home, protecting the neighbors in the community, and protecting the people that come into our community and stay in these homes. So this is something that we're just gonna hash out a little bit. We want ideas. We have to do something. But I say it every time we have this meeting, we're not here to restrict or take away any people that have it now. This is for more to get them under some of the rulings that we need to have for like parking and garbage and noise and how many people could be in a house. And so that's what we're looking for. And we're looking for now maybe to start finding ways to use our codes of what we have in residential areas to slow it down or even stop it. So I'll turn it over to Paul if he wants to talk about anything. Or Karen, would you like to start first? You and I talked today a lot.
I can start. I had talked to Councilman Niles last week. I don't want to duplicate some of the findings is what I'm getting at. Anyway.
Why don't we tag team it?
Okay. I went online to the county website and printed off a couple pages out of that local law, number 5 of 2018, which is the Warren County local law for occupancy tax, because Mr. Berdanko and his family were quoting out of that, and I wanted to make sure I had the terms that they were looking at. So I have that available if anybody wants to look at that. And I'm going to leave it at that. I also called Doug Frost from the town of Lake George and talked to him because I was being told by a citizen in Lake George that they regulated these short-term rentals as to where they could be and where they couldn't be. And yet I was hearing here that nobody really regulated them. So I called the town and spoke to Doug Frost. And when I spoke to him, he told me that he did both the town and the village. I'm understanding from Jim now that he just works for the town.
He used to do both.
But he used to do both. And so he must have
He
been
was
working for
involved in
both of them when they were setting up their regulations.
Correct.
They do regulate where they go. In the town, they are not allowed, short-term rentals are not allowed in the strict residential areas. And he gave me the zones, but they didn't mean anything to me because they didn't match ours. But they are not allowed in what he termed the quasi-commercial zones, which, and this is the town, not the village, which includes the quasi-commercial zones included most of the lakefront areas. In the village, they're only allowed in the commercial zones, and they're kept out of the strict residential zones. And he said it more or less limits them in the village to the first 2 streets widths in the village, and anything beyond that, they're not really allowed. And the reason for that is that they are trying to not lose their residency base. And I think that that is, after talking to him, I think that's a big concern. They The ones that existed before they adopted their ordinance, they grandfathered in. But if those properties are sold and they're in a zone where they're no longer allowed, anyone buying that property cannot turn that house building into a short-term rental any longer. They have a company that monitors all of these short-term rentals for them, and this is in addition to what the county does. And I don't think I have the name correct. I hope you wrote it down.
Yeah, Granicus.
Granitus?
Yeah, the way I spell it is Granicus.
Well, I'm good. I'll leave that.
I haven't
We can-
gone
we-
online
We
to
can
check 'em
find
out.
that out, but it's a host compliance company and they dig down. I mean, they don't just go to the major ones. And that's what when I talked to the county, that's what Mike Swan told me was the company that they're using, they just look at like Verbo and Airbnb. They don't go into a lot of these minor ones, and there are more popping up daily is what I was told.
Yeah, Doug told me he's through that company, he's caught some that haven't even rented yet. That are positioning to rent, they're running ads or whatever, but they haven't even rented yet.
Okay. And he's told me that without having that company, without the town having contracted with that company, that he wouldn't be able to do his job, that it's that involved. So, okay, someone had asked me whether they compared their list to the list that the county has, but I think that their list is more comprehensive
Yeah,
than the county's list. So that's basically what I have come up with new since we last met. So if anyone else wants to take over, be my guest.
I took everything you just said, exactly as you said it, away from the meeting that Tracy and I had with him on Friday. Couple, little more depth. Town of Lake George has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 zones. Village, he told me, only has 4. And right now, residential short-term rentals are allowed in 7 of those. And as you said, they're all either 100% commercial or quasi-residential commercial. The 3 strict residential ones, they're not allowed. Zoning regulations simply doesn't allow them. You said the same thing, they're grandfathered. Property sells, the grandfather issue goes away, and it goes back to the zone.
And he also told me that the realtors know to call and ask if the property that's for sale, will it be allowed to be continued as a short-term rental if it goes on the market?
I asked him, it's been, the zoning's been in, I think he said since 2018, 18 or 19. I asked him, how hard was it to get through that process? And he said they had several public hearings, several workshops, but it really wasn't too bad. People realized something had to be done.
I'm
They-
assuming,
Hold on, Karen. They do, by the way, have a regulation too, which is very similar to the other ones we're looking at. You know, so many parking spots, and they use the county to determine most of that, just like the other towns are doing.
okay,
So
I was gonna say, I think it's a two, I don't want to say law, but 2 issue thing that one, their ordinance needed to be changed to include short-term rentals in their table use, et cetera. Then they had to do the actual ordinance, which was probably a local law. So it was probably a 2-part process for them. One, the ordinance, and 2, the actual zone, 1, the zoning ordinance to make that compliant with what they were doing, and 2, the actual ordinance to regulate them.
I brought that regulation, Lake George's version, with me. It's in this pile here somewhere, so I can get copies to everybody on that.
Yeah,
I think,
Um,
I think we distributed it by email to everyone.
It's not the one I had before. It's a different, one. At least the format's different. So I'm not sure if it's the same one or not.
Right.
When I started working on this, I didn't think it was a zoning issue. But now, after listening to Mr. Frost, I'm thinking it may be a zoning issue. Which reminds me, I asked him, if the board wants, would he be willing to come over and talk to us to relay his experiences? And he said he would love to help us if we choose to invite him.
Just my little 2 cents, and I'm gonna keep harping on this. We need to do something. We can change anything in zoning we want. But it doesn't affect the people that have it today. You gotta remember that.
It doesn't
it-
affect what?
The people that are in it have Airbnbs today. So that's the hard part. But we can restrict it from starting to, let's just, I'm using a phrase, starting tomorrow forever until that house is sold. Then we can, anyone that's in there sells their house, well, then the new people can't just pick it up and start doing Airbnb. They have to come back to the town to get a permit, and then we can tell them.
Well, I think the first thing, like we've discussed a little bit there, to stop any more infringement at this present time, okay, is to put a moratorium in, to put everything on hold while we're putting this package together. Okay, be it until the first of the year or anything of that sort. At least anybody that's thinking about doing anything at the present time, that will stop it.
Problem is, we don't issue permits for it. So how can we stop something we aren't doing? You know what I mean?
I think you could talk to the lawyer about that. you know.
Well, I was hoping that our lawyer was we were gonna have legal counsel here tonight. That's why I asked him last week, is somebody gonna be here? And I can see that didn't happen. But I think
I think we could move ahead with the regulation, couldn't we? I don't mean tonight, but the changing the zoning as a whole is a separate issue. But if we came to agreement, Gene, on a resolution for the regulation, so many parking spots, so many bedrooms, all that kind of stuff, that we can do that. There's no grandfathering involved there, would there be? That's a question for the attorney.
One of the things, I mean, you're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Grandfathering would be any that exist right now would be allowed to exist even after you have adopted the regulations. But you also could incorporate into that a grace period where they would have a period of time where that they, within say 6 months of adopting the ordinance, that they had to come into compliance with getting a permit and having that inspection and all of that. So you're kind of talking two things there as well. You could grandfather in the ones that exist, but then give them a grace period to come into compliance with getting the permits, even if they're not allowed in a certain zone, if that's the way you end up going, not allowing them in certain areas. You still could grandfather them in, but give them a grace period to at least get their permit in place and have that inspection by the county and, provide us with the paperwork that we're going to be looking for.
so. Basically, the stuff that we discussed a couple of weeks ago from the zoning board, our zoning board, as well as looking at the other towns that have already got one in place. Okay, like Jim was saying, we went over the one here already. I've made notes on in regards to this, that, and the other thing, days of permit and how long you're good for and things of this sort.
Details.
Yeah. And I don't see why we couldn't do what you're suggesting there, Karen. Because even the ones that are in place right now. Yeah, we have to grandfather them because they're established. But if we don't. If they don't come up to our regulations or codes. You know, fire detectors, so much, this, that, and the other thing. Then they won't be grandfathered. We're giving them a grace period to get this up to compliance.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
don't see
agree.
a problem in that.
We should continue. And put together a good, call it a product, a good. Regulation book. We should get it done as quick as we can, but get it right. One thing, Mr. Frost from Lake George told me was that he felt lucky that they were ahead of the curve.
Mhm.
In other words, they got their regulation put together in 2018.
Yeah,
So there wasn't as many already up and running that they had to consider.
just like,
So sooner is better as long as it's done right.
but at the same time. We don't have the commercial aspects. As Lake George does.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So to try to come up with a designated areas. Is gonna make it pretty darn hard.
Yeah.
This is, yeah, parts of 9N. Things like this. But basically, the whole town is residential hamlet. Okay,
Yeah.
so. You get them up on Gailey Hill or,
That's not Hamlet residential though. That's gonna be like residential town or residential resort. See.
Yeah.
If you, I should have brought my map in, but I didn't.
but you know what I'm saying? That, we don't have the commercial end that Lake George has.
No,
Or
but
Bolton Landing.
no,
The
but you
zoning
could
thing
look
might
at,
not make sense for us.
Huh?
Zoning thing might not make sense. For us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying in regards to, it would be a very, in my eyes, at the present time. Okay. To try to handle it that way.
the
Okay,
only problem is if you don't limit them somehow. Either by, and I'm not making any suggestions here, but. You stand to lose your residential base.
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And somehow you've got, and I don't know what the answer is, but. I don't know if you. I don't know. I don't know whether you take like an overlay and put it on a map and pick and choose, or if you.
Can we do it possibly? I understand that. There's over 200 LLC or Airbnbs within the township right now.
Where do you get that number
That
from?
said that to me before. I
got
have
it
a
on-
county, I have a county list here, and they're only showing me less than 50.
That have signed up,
Unless, oh, okay, that might, I would
that have signed up.
have signed up. Well, they have 10 that haven't, so it's only really
So
34.
there's your difference. Okay. So. Can we take a serious look?
Go-
Maybe I'm right out of left field. Can we take a percentage? In our figuring. That. In our township, we've got approximately. 2,800. Resident or housing. Okay, we got 3,200 parcels. You got 2,800. Buildings. And then during the winter months, that drops way off. Do you think there's a way that we can say, okay, as part of our thing, we're putting together 10% or 5% of,
I don't know how you would,
that's gonna be the trick, is how do you do it?
yeah, I don't know how you do it.
At least this,
For one thing, all LLCs are not short-term rentals. There are LLCs out there that are other things.
well, I'm not, I shouldn't have said LLC. Okay, the
Mhm.
problem is, as we well know, if we lose our residential basis. Okay, and you can see it right now. There's hardly any houses in the town of Lake Luzerne for sale right now. Okay. And my feeling is, if that goes the wrong way, okay, we're gonna have a tough time and
But how, I don't know how you're gonna control it, because if say I wanna sell my house, somebody wants to buy it for cash, I turn it over in a week for
oh, I'm not
cash.
disagreeing. I don't know how we could do it.
How are you going to know that until it comes, and even coming through Melissa's office, the assessor's office from the county, which may take a month to come through. Okay, the sale has happened, and then you're gonna go and tell those people, oh, you can't use it for that. Yes, they need to do their due diligence and look and see if it's allowed or not, but
That's the strongest argument for in favor of zoning.
yes.
Well, I'm saying,
To follow Karen's scenario on, she sells the house, somebody buys it.
Yep.
All they have to, let's say we pass our resolution regulating it, all they got to do is come in and get a permit.
okay, but at the same time, if we determine, and I'm using just figures, we're allowing 150 LLCs in the town.
Yeah, short-term rentals, you mean?
Yeah, excuse me, short-term Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Here comes Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they're number 151. Well, we only allow 150 Airbnbs in the town.
Zoning is geographic.
Mhm.
You can put it here, you can't put it here.
I not disagree with you.
Yeah.
But I'm saying at least we can limit the number.
Yeah.
Unless somebody drops out of the program and sells that house to somebody else. And it goes back to, you know, a actual residential home. Not an Airbnb.
One thing I was gonna do, if you guys don't mind, is I was gonna call this Granicus and see if they would do a one-time survey for us to see what we have in Lake Luzerne. Get a price.
Mike Bordeaux is here in the audience. He is on the zoning board of appeals, and he actually took it upon himself after not this last meeting, but the one before, to go home, and he mapped out a bunch of stuff. I don't know if you want to give him a chance
Yeah,
to speak.
Come ahead.
Come up here and talk in the mic, so we all.
Fire away.
come ahead, Mr. Bordeaux.
So I'm not gonna throw any names out there, properties, that's not right now, being live streamed and all that, but I went through and I mapped out, let me give you some numbers. The county gave us a list, and
Which I
Forgive me,
passed on to them.
I don't have on me tonight.
I have
I
it.
think there was 36 properties registered for occupancy tax at the county and 10 that were not.
That's 34 and 10.
Okay,
That's what I have.
34 and 10, so I was close. In my research, I spent an hour on my MacBook, so this is why I'm saying no on the Granitus. I mean, get a quote from them, but you're gonna get overcharged. I spent an hour on my MacBook. 16 properties I found that were registered,
Spend an hour on what?
huh?
You spend an hour on what?
On my computer. I
Okay.
spent an hour on my computer, 16 properties I found renting between 10 different short-term rental sites that were registered at the county. 6 I found that are absolutely not registered at the county. These are properties that I could pinpoint and say, blah, 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 this is, 352, whatever road, okay? Then what I found is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 businesses that are on these sites doing short-term rentals.
Now, what are you talking businesses?
Okay, so one LLC up towards Lake Venar.
Okay,
Then things along the lines of, let me ask this, how occupancy tax with the businesses? I'm a business, I have a hotel. Warren County puts in the occupancy tax. I'm supposed to pay that 4% tax, right? As
Yep.
long as my rental is less than 30 days. So if I went to say, let's throw it out. If I went to Gene's place and I rented for 31 days, you wouldn't technically have to pay occupancy tax on that. But if I rent less than 30 days, you do, right?
That's not my laws.
No, I'm asking like how the county is set up on that.
That I don't know.
I don't
Okay.
know.
I don't think they're set up by that,
So then let's get away from the businesses
you
then,
know.
because I was not sure. So
Well,
that
there's-
was more.
just so you know, there's
question.
a lot of business. I'm on Airbnb also,
Yeah,
but my prices are 3 times as high as. Well, nobody comes to me.
yeah,
I
well,
just use it to get exposure.
absolutely. It's
I
brilliant.
I have
too. You
not
should.
hired a guy because I'm $200 a night.
Yeah,
So, but somebody sees that and says, well, you know, let's look on the internet about this place, and they come and they pay my price, not an Airbnb.
yeah.
And there's a couple of little motels here that have a house there.
Okay.
They're doing the house to it. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I was not sure on the business aspect of the occupancy tax, so I don't necessarily want to say anything on that, but then what I found on top of that was 19 properties that I could not pinpoint what the address was that are on there for short-term rentals.
Mm.
As you know, I've lived in town my whole life, but you know, on the back of some of these roads or, you know, down by the river, I'm not gonna know what the exact address of the house is. So obviously, we have a problem, people not registering. My thing with the company in Lake George is I would try to get a quote from them. But if you are outsourcing to a company, I think that's gonna cost the town a lot more. For something, in all honesty, I did an hour at my house on a computer with a beer in my hand. Realistically,
Yeah.
The thing.
Doug
that-
Frost said they pay 5,000 a year for that service.
oh, that's not bad then.
Yeah.
I'll give that
Some
to
of them
you.
are higher, but
So I don't know if they do a one-time deal.
Yeah,
I think I'll call them. What the heck?
yeah,
that doesn't
absolutely.
hurt.
That's
But-
not bad.
The point I'm trying to make is we gotta come up. It's gotta stop. Future, losing the houses in the future. That's what we're aimed at. The ones that are here, but we can regulate them to help the problem that gentleman has. Too much noise, too many people there, a lot of garbage. I mean, this is the things that the only thing the town can do to the ones that are here.
Yeah.
And make them pay a permit starting in 2023.
Do you mind if I share my input that I
Sure.
shared with Chairman Palich and he passed on to you guys?
Go
Because,
ahead.
you know, some of the wording might have been just a little bit different. He didn't include every single detail, which is 100% fine. I mean, it was large, but first thing, when we do pass the law or through zoning, I feel that like, you know, it'd have to be a resolution through the town board. You got to define everything. We know that. And then we got to decide that if it includes businesses or if it's just residential area, you know, residents.
Or its own zone.
Yeah, or if it's just zone. Permits, one of the things I said, I think that in all honesty, we can get this on law by January 1st. And I think you should give them till May 31st, that grace period you were talking about. $300 for the permit, make it last for 3 years if it's an individual, if it's under a business or an LLC, because the LLC to protect their interest, we all know that. They pay $100 fee through the state each year for that LLC. To renew that LLC, it's $100 fee. You guys all know that. Charge them $500 for the business. If it's an LLC property and they're paying that LLC fee, $500 for the permit. Permit process, it's got to be the sole responsibility of, say, one office in the zone, in the town. It's got to be either town clerk or the zoning. If it's zoning, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. You got to create an application. That's pretty simple. I
It
said,
would be a lot of work for the
But
town
not for the
clerk.
clerk.
yeah, it's a lot of work for anyone. It really
You
is.
must be sliding, Cindy. That's all I can say.
Here's the thing though, is if we can figure out a way to regulate it and get that money for the occupancy tax in the county. That money comes back to the town. That pays for deputy zoning.
No, it
officer.
doesn't, unfortunately.
not?
The occupancy
they-
tax can only be used to promote tourism.
Tourism.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So then that just,
See, that's a
Yeah.
bad part of the regulation that was started 10 years ago.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We can't use it for sidewalks. We can't use it, we can, flags, flowers. But,
That's-
it's,
that's-
it's crazy. Or we can give it to, let's say, the snowmobile club.
Yeah.
We give them $5,000 a year on an average, but they promoting the town.
For
to
the
go
winter
snowmobile.
tourism. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
There's the gray area in there, but it's there.
it helps the town though, if we can collect more of that occupancy
I
tax.
just don't, not 100% sure we might not be able to pay someone that is working on collecting this tax. You know, they're working on the job to do that.
The treasurer's office is gonna be the one collecting the
Yeah,
tax.
they collect it.
Yeah.
They're just gonna be regulating. the
Like if they
short-term
have the
rentals.
permits and stuff in the town, but
The permits for the town, we have to do on our own.
yeah,
It's Mike, right?
Yeah.
Can you give me a rundown again on the numbers? How many we have, how many you found?
Can I want to make a disclaimer before Mike has done a lot of this research on his own.
yes,
Yes, he is a member of the zoning board of appeals, but this is his take
Yeah.
on this whole issue.
Yeah.
He's not representing the zoning board of appeals. He's representing Mike Bordeaux tonight.
thank you. I probably should have led with that, but I found 16 that were registered on that county list for residences. I found 6 residences that were not registered with the county that were available for short-term rentals. And then I found there was 19 that I could not pinpoint what the address was.
So there's 19 more that
19 more
they're advertising.
residences, not businesses, that I could not pinpoint what the address was.
But they are advertising for rent.
Yes, for short-term rentals on
Okay.
Airbnb, VRBO, and the multitude of other sites.
Now, your first number you said was 16 on the county list. The county list has 31, was it?
Yes,
Thir-
so out of that 19, some of those may be on the county list, but I was not able to pinpoint what the
Right.
address was.
That's one thing Doug Frost told me was that one advantage this Granicus has is he will give you tax map ID numbers and
Oh,
How
Yeah.
many did you say is on county list?
31,
34.
34.
Well, let's put it this way. You have the 16, the 6 and the 19, it comes up to 31.
16 and 19
16,
35.
is 35, and then 6 makes me 42, 41. Yeah,
yeah, 41, excuse me.
okay. So still some that are not registered.
I've got a person right now, not too far from my home. I've never seen the people before in my life. Okay? And they're in there this week.
Ditto.
Was it an Airbnb? I don't know. Is it friends of those people? It might be. But I know the whole family, so
Yeah.
I know it's not part of the family. Let's put it that way.
So let's look at it just another way real quick, though. The application fee through the town, $300, 3 years, it's good for 500 for LLC businesses. That's money for the town to help pay for, you know, enforcement of it
Mhm.
or instead of the occupancy tax. That's another way.
Thanks, Mike, for going
Hope you
above and
guys
beyond.
find that helpful. I'll be glad to send you the information too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like it.
Yeah.
You know, I was going over that list that Matt gave us a couple weeks ago,
Thanks, Mike.
okay? And it says minimum 2-night stay. Now, this is the recommendations from our board. Okay? 3-year permit. Okay, you all got a copy. And just like I mentioned earlier, I'd like that 2-night change to at least 3 nights. Okay? Possibly 4. Because that's going to stop the Friday and Saturday and leave on Sunday deal. And turn that from a motel situation, because that's what you're looking at. If they want to stay a Friday night, Saturday night, there's more than enough facilities in this town, okay, for hotels and motels and things of this sort. This is going to help, in my eyes, protect the businesses that are in the town and stop the weekend wonders renting a home, and you know what that is going to be, just a party weekend. That's the way I feel about it.
One of the arguments that the people that were in our meetings that actually ran these short-term rentals made was that if you're concerned about the noise, the people and all of that, that they find it's easier to keep track of people staying 2 days than the people staying 4 days, 3 days, because the people come in for 2 days, they're coming in, they're spending their money in town, eating out, they're not bringing in food, they're not coming to cook, they're just coming to be here for the short-term time. They're not likely to be inviting other people in for parties and stuff when they stay a longer period of time. This is what we got from the people that were actually in the meetings that are running these places. It's easier for them. They have a better handle on who is there and what is going on with the shorter term stays than the longer term stays.
Yeah, they said they would prefer to see it no longer minimum than 3, I think they said. 3
Well, it
nights.
says here minimum of 2.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the folks.
We,
that were
we
at
actually
our last
started out
meeting.
talking about, I think either 5 or 7 days when we first started talking. And they modified it down to 2 at the end, by the end of the evening, because of the feedback that we got
Oh.
on the difference between having people staying short times than people staying long times.
This was at the ZBA meeting.
Was it planning? Yeah, planning.
Yeah, well, it was 2 folks that came to a town board meeting too. And I think they said the same thing. Maybe it was the same people that spoke to the planning board. I
It
don't know.
probably, it might have been.
I think they said they hoped that it would not be the minimum any more than 3 nights. I think they said,
One of the people
Let's
that
go 3 nights then.
had bought a place, had advertised it first for minimum of 5 nights, I think, and he got no business.
yeah,
And so he cut it down to 2 and then he was booked.
I'll bet it was the same people that came to the town board
Probably.
meeting,
But,
because,
but they had legitimate reasons
yes,
why they did it that way. And it wasn't, it was, again, and it wasn't just one person. It was a couple people saying that the shorter the stay, the better handle they had on what was going on.
But we're also seeing, if you talk to the people that are running the hotels and motels in town, Island View, for one, over the last couple, 3 years, she has seen a major reduction,
I'm sure.
okay, in her weekend stays and things of this,
Mhm.
okay? And this seems about when the Airbnbs really started taking off. Okay, and a lot of her business, of course, unless they're there for the week. Okay. Is a Friday, Saturday type of deal, and they're leaving on Sunday. Or a Saturday come in, type of deal. This is why I'm saying, if we go to a minimum 3 nights, I'll come, to 3 nights. The average person is not going to spend an extra X amount of dollars. And that's going to help send those other people that are there for 2 night stay back to our motels and the businesses of our town. This is my feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure you're
Okay.
going to get a lot of feedback from the people that own the short-term rentals as well as the people that don't like the short-term rentals when you have your public hearings, and you may have to modify things accordingly after you hear both sides of the argument at that point.
Got a few members on Zoom have had their hand up a little bit. They made contributions in the chat. Got a chance to read that.
You have a name?
We asked them to speak up. Maybe they could.
Yeah.
answer their question.
Do they have a name there? Sorry.
So Diane and Eric first.
Diane? Diane, would you like to speak to the town board?
Sure.
State your whole name, please.
Diane Powers.
Okay, go ahead.
So I am listening to this. And so, years ago, the short-term rental business has evolved and started much more than just a few years ago. And it is a travel trend that I think is sort of here to stay. And unfortunately, the hotels and motels have fallen out of favor partially in this area and in Lake George in general, because they haven't kept up with, quite honestly, some of the amenities and accommodations that people are looking for. So I do worry that if you're looking at this in terms of regulations, I just ask that you carefully consider the potential loss and impact economically to this area and to Warren County in general of restrictions that would potentially shoot you in the foot. The hotels and the motels, obviously their occupancy is declining, but it's partially as a result of travel trends. And people, because of COVID, because of just they're traveling with family, they do prefer to stay in a short-term rental where they don't have common areas, where they can have a space and a kitchen for their own. And this is something that's basically been happening for quite a while now. The occupancy taxes can, in my opinion, more than make up for any loss of and kind of travel away from those hotels and motels. And I'm, unfortunately, if you don't evolve, you dissolve. And so I do worry that that you've got to have your finger on the pulse as to what people really are looking for in terms of coming to this area. They do come for the lake, they do come to hike, they do come to take advantage of a lot of the things that are still in this area, like the Painted Pony Rodeo. They do come for the lakes, they do come for hiking. If you restrict that and you don't have accommodations for them, and I'm sorry, I have to disagree with, I can't remember the gentleman who said it, that the hotels could accommodate these people. They can't, because there's approximately, you said it, 41 short-term rentals in Lake Luzerne, whether they're registered or not. You don't have that capacity in these hotels, nor do they want it. So they will go elsewhere. And I do think that that is a great economic impact, not only to our area, but to Warren County in general. And I think the occupancy tax is set up so that it can promote the area. I don't know how transparent the reporting is from Warren County. But I do know that I think at the last meeting, someone said that it's a $30,000 impact. I do understand what you're saying about housing, but I don't think that short-term rentals are taking away that housing. I do worry that if you have a short-term rental that then gets sold to a second homeowner, and that's what I see from having grown up in this area. I do see it particularly up in the Heights, but it's out everywhere, where a lot of the short-term, a lot of primary homes are being sold to second homeowners from Connecticut, from New Jersey. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the board, I don't even know how many of you actually grew up here or are actually second homeowners and have come to the area as tourists and then stayed. But a lot of these homes could potentially be sold to second homeowners. And I see it up here where I live. Some of these second homeowners, they're here maybe 2 to 3 weeks a year, and then the house stands vacant. So that's kind of one of the things that I saw almost 18 years ago when I started my business, is that a lot of these homes, they sit vacant. They're not contributing anything to our local economy other than just a property tax. So when you have people actually in it and occupying, they're going to the rodeo, they're going to Sweeties, they're going to the Hitching Post, they're going to Longhorn, they're going to Bonds, they're playing golf. They did support the local restaurants. It is concerning now that our restaurants are not open. But I don't think that was because of a result of any of the short-term rentals. My guests they frequented all of them many times a week. I think that sometimes when you look at like the impact of something, you have some kind of unintended results, and that is concerning. I mean, if we look at just what happened during COVID with the additional unemployment benefits that were given to people, the additional economic stimulus that was given to people, the unintended results ended up being that some of our restaurants now can't even get help. And that was one of the things that I know is still occurring. But that wasn't supposed to be the intent of that stimulus, but that's what happened. We don't have enough people to work. I also have to say that, some of the zoning, I feel like in particular, most of this area of Lake Luzerne, with the exception of some of the actual permitted subdivisions, were always tourist destinations. It was Lake Luzerne was always, the site of the school is where the Wayside Inn stood.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Marion. Anyone else? out there?
Diane,
Diane, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Wayne Allison.
Wayne?
Hello?
Hi, this
Yes.
is Mary Ellen Allison. I just wanted to reiterate what I spoke of at an earlier meeting in the spring. I addressed the board about this, and I told you that I had researched this with the organization that represents the town of Old Forge, the town of Webb, and I forget the other little town up there. I spoke with Mr. Dan Kieferbach, and I gave all of you copies of a couple of magazine articles that addressed this in the other parts of the Adirondacks. And the first question I asked you was, does the town have a committee to address housing issues? Because we need a central location for it. We need somebody to head it. The idea of short-term rentals is not a new issue. That has always been, it's just hit our area after other areas. And one of the main suggestions, because I keep hearing that, and I did bring this up, is the loss of actual homes to short-term rentals. There is a need for everything. There aren't any bad accommodations. We just need to use legislation and zoning to regulate it so that everybody can benefit. And one of the things that I brought up at that meeting was the deed restriction program. And a deed restriction is a self-encumbrance that has a legal cost attached to it, and it's codified to the life of the home. And so homeowners can put that on their property so that it states that for the life of that home, it is to be used as a home, either a long-term rental or a family home. And up in the area of Old Forge, the three towns consolidated to form this organization, and they have done fundraising to help offset the cost, the legal costs, which up there runs about $600 to have that deed restriction put on. They do it by knocking on doors and asking residents if they would consider doing it. Because some people don't know about it. I wouldn't have known about it if I didn't ask. So there is a way to kind of work around this once you get the zoning and regulation in place. There is a way to try to protect the family homes in town without shutting everybody out. That's all I had to say.
Hold on, G. Mary Ellen, are any of those homeowners compensated for putting that restriction in their deeds?
No, the only thing that they are offered is assistance with the legal fee, because you have to make an addendum to your deed. So there is a legal fee attached to that, but no, they are not given any compensation. It is just people that live in a town and love their town and want to keep families living in their town. Because if we lose the family homes, then we're looking at having to raise taxes to be able to provide things like a fire department and an ambulance service, because we would have to pay for those, because by losing family homes, we're losing families, we're losing volunteers. So that's where that runs from.
It's a good
I'm
point.
looking at a list right now that was given to us with the names and addresses from Warren County on Warren County occupancy tax database. It gives a list of the names, the addresses, who has definitely signed up. There's 34 names on that list. Okay, so that's going back to what Gene was saying, the number. And there is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. 10 more names on there that have not registered. So if this piece of paper helps you, Mike, it's available.
We have that. That's
You
what
have
we
that.
used.
Okay. Well, that, between that and going under GIS on your map system out of Warren County, look it up under warrencounty.gov. Warren County, New York. .gis. Okay. You can pull up the exact location of the house. It will show you a picture, the whole 9 yards, if you're not aware of that. Okay.
Yes, who is it?
JSPUR.
That's John Kaminsky.
Yes, this is John Karimsky, Chairman of the Planning Board. At our meeting, it was discussed, we started with the 5-night stay. And there were several good reasons, 2 of which really stuck out. The 2-day minimum, they had better opportunity to check their property, because after 2 days, they go in, make sure the place is clean. And the other reason is the motels and hotels in our town closed down pretty much in the winter. So there's no place to stay. I think even the Lake Luzerne motel shuts down in the winter now too. They used to be open, but everybody else shuts down for the winter. So that was the other reason for the 2-night stay, plus the fact just to have the Airbnbs. As far as the regulations pertaining to whether it be the village, the town, or whatever, that's gonna have to be something that the town or the town board will have to decide. We didn't really have an answer for that based on what other towns were doing. Some of them did, some of them didn't. So those are my comments.
Hey, John, it's Jim. Do you have any thoughts, or would you give us some thoughts when you have some about whether or not we should zone for this?
The tough part is yeah, deciding how to zone. I mean, our town
Yeah.
is definitely different than Lake George and even Warrensburg. I think we have less retail business in Warrensburg, you know. Bolton Landing is that was the other option that we looked at. I think they technically have more business during the summer than we do. It's unfortunate. Our town used to be very busy, had more businesses, more restaurants, and hopefully that's going to change based on what we're doing with the master plan. But at this point, I think it's kind of hard to try to zone, you know, as far as where the Airbnbs can go, other than you, I would assume you want to keep them away from the main drag. I mean, you know, right in town where the other hotels are, but I don't know if that can be done, if that's a separate zone on its own or not, but, and even there, they're going to be closed in the winter. So what good would that technically do?
Thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else? Diane, do you have your hand back up? You seem like somebody else that, nobody else is up there looking to talk. We'll give you.
I
another
do,
shot.
I do.
Go ahead.
I mean, just my thoughts in the short time that I've been back in the area. The change really occurred with having less long-term residents or year-round residents, I will say, occurred simultaneously with the closing of International Paper. So your loss of homes of year-round homeowners has very little to do with short-term rentals. I believe it has more to do with lack of employment. And when that happened, a lot of families left. I don't know if anything is going to be addressed with the master plan about trying to attract another employer. I don't know. I mean, I am a finance major, but I don't know what the largest source of funds is for Lake Luzerne. I'm assuming it's school taxes, property taxes. At this point, there are very few restaurants. There's no sales tax. Occupancy tax. I do wish that Warren County would provide you better numbers. I don't know what you get other than the number of short-term rentals in our area. But if you were able to get copies of actual reports and see, you know, what percentage of that total occupancy tax amount is Lake Luzerne actually getting, is 30,000 enough? I don't know if that's something that could be pursued to see if that there's more there. I do, like I said, want to just caution you that if those properties are sold, they will potentially or probably be sold to a cash buyer who's a second homeowner and not to a first-time homeowner. Most of those properties are not first-time homeowner material. Some of the ones I manage are even year-round properties. So they're not being taken off the market for a year-round residence.
I can answer one of those questions for you. So far this year, Lake Luzerne has received, and don't hold me to the penny, but somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 in OC tax extra than we normally get every year. So it is being collected, and I know the number.
What do you mean by extra? So
Okay, what happens, I'll give you a quick synopsis of it. The taxes are collected, OC tax are collected. 25% is given to all the towns, right off the top. But it's based on the assessed value of your town. So like the smaller towns, we get about 30,000, 32,000. Somebody like Bolton Landon, I hate to say this, but they get about 200,000. But it's 25% minus your assessed value. So what's happening, I know, and I just heard it maybe 2 weeks ago at a treasurer's report, they've collected over $1 million in occupancy tax for the first 6 months of this year. That's the whole county wise, not just Lake Luzerne. It's the whole county. That's a lot of income. But at the same time, because I work closely with the business people around with the hotels and motels, they're declining in their revenue because the people are going to someplace else. So it's like if you go over here and pay OC tax, or you go over here and you pay OC tax, it's still occupancy tax. But sometimes the hotels are more money, so they make more, by the number you have to charge at 4%. So
but it's
a-
allocated based on the assessments of all the properties in the town.
right.
So basically though, if so it is a balancing act. So if the short-term rentals are regulated to the point where they're not existent, then you won't even get the 25%, and you won't, but you'll have what you'll end up with is higher the additional need for higher property taxes because you'll have no employer and you'll have just to make that money based on property taxes and very few school taxes because you'll have all second homeowners. That's my concern.
Well, second homeowners pay full school taxes. They pay full, like up in the Heights, they pay full garbage pickup, even though they only use it for 4 months a year. They pay.
Right,
full
but they're
water assessment.
contributing, but they're not
But-
contribute, when they're here, which is very minimal. They're not, so if they're here maybe 30 days out of the year, or if they're even here, let's say they're even here 6 months. I have properties that rent full year round. Not many, a lot of them are all seasonal, but at least even I have some second homeowners that I actually rent their properties when they're not here. So that there are occupants and there are families that are coming here and spending their vacation dollars here in Lake Luzerne and not elsewhere.
I wouldn't disagree with that, yes. But I'm just trying to explain to you about as far as OC tax goes. It's a big number. So is sales tax revenue, a big number. But
Yeah.
everything, and I know everybody argues about this, but I kind of look at it a little bit different. If you just listen to what I'm saying, I hear from the hotel owners that they're not getting the midweek business like they were. Okay. But when you look at the sales tax revenue and the occupancy tax revenue that is collected in Warren County this year alone, I don't have it in front of me because I just got it today and I didn't print it out yet, is already doing $1.5 million in sales tax revenue, more than we did last year. So I always look at it, somebody's coming in to do something and paying OC tax and sales tax.
Yes, and
It-
Warren,
it-
and
It
Warren
hasn't
County,
dropped.
yeah,
Even we're
no,
doing better than
they're- right.
We're doing
Travel-
better than 19, which was the best year we ever had. in
right,
Sales tax and OC tax, even though through the virus, we
Right.
still each year produce more.
right, because during COVID, Warren County was actually poised in a very good position where people wanted to get out of the city and they flocked here. And that was something that Warren County actually promoted our area quite well during that time, even though it was scary for us and it was, tough. I do feel like based on all of that, Warren County is somewhat using that occupancy tax fund to promote our area. But I mean, like whether or not that formula is helping Lake Luzerne or not, I feel like it would be beneficial if they would share the actual occupancy tax numbers. But that gentleman, Mike Bordeaux, could look through all of the calendars of all the properties that he's seen, and he could tell how many nights were booked where. But it'd be nice if Warren County would share that information, because 30,000 might not be enough for Lake Luzerne.
I'll just give you one more. My good friend Kevin Garrity, who is a supervisor of Warrensburg, him and I always debate this, because Lake Luzerne actually gets more sales tax, not more sales, excuse me, more occupancy tax than Warrensburg does, because our assessed value is a little higher, even though he's the second largest town in Warren County with the second largest population. So, it all depends on how many lakes you have and the type of, because like Bolton Landon, they get a lot of money, but they have all those multi-million-dollar properties all along the lake up there. So it's hard to, it's always a battle for us supervisors when we have to try to divide that up. The ones that get it want to keep it. The ones that don't get as much want to fight for more. So,
Yeah, Warrensburg was also one of the first to put short-term legislation into effect. So maybe they did shoot themselves in the foot a little bit. But I'd also like to say that in 18 years of doing this, almost all of my guests, they come for Lake George and they stay for Lake Luzerne. They say it all the time. If you look at some of my reviews, they always say, we came because we wanted to go to Lake George. We went one day and we had enough of the t-shirts and the, you know, the strip, whatever, the tchotchke shops. And they said they preferred to stay here. They are sad that, that the restaurants, I mean, and that's one of my concerns too, is that, you know, some of our trend is to go from, a business into a residential home. I mean, with the closing of Upriver, with the, you know, the sale of Waterhouse, it's, you know, Hadley General Store. A lot of my guests used to love to go there. I don't know what's happening there. Molly's.
Yep, Ciro's now, Ciro's used to be a real popular restaurant. It's now five apartments. So, you know, it'd be hard, and I'm with you all the way on these restaurants, but it'll be hard to get somebody in here because we really don't have a facility. Upriver is now a home. Ciro's is home. Waterhouse is still available for a restaurant, but I don't know which way it's going. So to
Yeah, and I
somebody wants to open a restaurant in Lake Luzerne, there really isn't a big enough building to occupy 30, 40 people to come into dinner.
Well, I mean,
We have problems in the future coming up on that.
Molly's is more than big enough, but the old Molly's, but I think part of it too is just that these restaurant owners can't get help.
Mhm.
And then they do, like Danny said, they age out and it's young man's game. And at some point you gotta have the family to back you up and do it. But you also have to have the employees. And I don't know what's happened with the work ethic of our youth. And I just like, part of it is I worry about that whole economic stimulus and the added unemployment that basically incented everybody to stay home and do nothing. It's a problem.
I couldn't agree more with you on that aspect.
I just want to let the board know that and the public that I did ask the Town Advisory Committee, which is the committee that's in the process of updating the master plan. I did ask them, through our consultant, I asked Tracy to have a discussion about short-term rentals and how they would impact our town. And consistently in the TAC's meetings, the issue of restaurants comes up. I went to 3 of their initial meetings and it came up every time. So
Of course it is.
it's on their radar. And also, John Karimsky, who's the chairman of the planning board, is he still on? He's listening to us.
Yeah, I'm still on.
And so John will, I'm sure, carry some of these messages to that committee at their next meeting, which is like September 1st or something.
Yeah, September 1st, we have an open house to the public, and then we have our regular meeting the 9th. But as far as the restaurants, Tracy, who is in charge of this committee, told us that she believes that if we get the right businesses in town, that will bring more people and will bring restaurants. So that's our hope based on what we talked about, just to let you know.
All right, anybody from the audience have any more comments? Yes, sir. If you would speak up or come over here, whatever is easier for you.
I think it was mentioned about the zoning. And I think if the HR residential could be amended, somehow amended, to keep the businesses out of the HR zoning area. We have 3 zoning areas. Everything's all right there. Commercial residential, resort residential. Let's keep this HR residential pure, so families can move in there. And like I said before, as they come up for sale, they'll be scooped right up and be another business down there. and denies the families to these areas that were planned for in the past. They were planned for that, and there's a definition there and everything. You may have to adopt some laws the county has. That's a business. That's a motel. That's not a single family dwelling.
This is why I was hoping that legal counsel was here tonight.
Yeah.
To get that question right there that you mentioned. Okay. Actually aired out.
I have a question. So in terms of of a
Can you say,
lot,
who are we speaking to?
Diane Powers. In-
Oh, okay. Diane, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm muted. Oh, am I muted?
No, you're fine. We're here.
Okay. So in terms of properties, as far as being conventional in a Hamlet residential zone. So Davern Drive had a hotel motel on it for a number of years, but also too, there are a number of properties, including Mr. Burdenko's, that have two homes on it that are not used year round. So, but two houses on one lot that flanks 32 Davern on one side. And then the property on the other side also has two homes on one lot. And so my question is that is not a primary residential use either. Correct, Karen? Is that conforming?
It may be like family members in that house, so Hamlet residential is defined in our zoning ordinance as residential development in a neighborhood setting. The purpose is to create a safe haven for people to live and conduct their domestic activities. A degree of privacy is expected, especially in the house and the rear yards. So when you're talking about two houses being on a lot, it's very possible that originally when they were placed there, that they were family homes, you know, with mother, father, daughter, husband, whatever. But without looking at individual ones now, I couldn't even begin to say how they're being used. But that's the definition of Hamlet residential in the zoning ordinance. It does not.
But is that conforming to have two houses on one lot?
If the lot is large enough,
Okay.
yeah, but you have to have, the right square footage, and now that's actually one of the things that I've got on my list of things to be looked at in the ordinance, is that particular issue. But now if someone had a lot large enough that could hold two houses, I would want to make sure that both houses were placed on those lots in a manner that if those lots could be subdivided down in the future, that those houses would be on lots large enough to conform with the allowed minimum allowance that is in the ordinance for those lots. That's how it's supposed to be done.
Setbacks and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sewage, the whole 9 yards.
All right. I don't know how far we got tonight, but we got to keep talking. Yes, Howard, you'd like to speak something? Yeah, he's finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Schaefer. I'm here strictly as a private citizen, not representing any board or organization. I'll just briefly share a thought with some comments, and then wanted to help to hopefully contribute to the board's effort in finding a solution that will work universally. As a longtime property owner, as a taxpayer, 5-generation resident and involved citizen, I would ask that you look at the perspective among the many opinions that you're hearing on the short-term rentals. During the late spring and early summer of 2021, we rented out a property that we own. We paid the bed tax, and in the end, we're quite surprised at the windfall. And I thought to myself, when meeting the renter, you want to pay that much for this place? And I was further shocked when the renter from Long Island said at the end of the week, we'd like to come back next year. And this experience made us realize two things. One is that we here in this room are the stewards of this special place called Lake Luzerne. It's got a certain brand. It's got a certain identity. It is indeed a desirable location with character and countless attributes. Everybody here on the town board in the room knows what we have. And yet we sometimes make the mistake of underselling ourselves. Now, when you think of what that word means, the identity, the brand that we all own in a sense, just like Stewart's Shops or Harris Grocery or Tubby Tubes or Glens Falls National Bank. We do not want to allow our identity or our brand of Lake Luzerne to be diminished. And renting to 150 plus short-term rentals in a small community does nothing to build or protect our brand in our residential hamlet neighborhoods that are becoming very transitory. The question here really is this, is what kind of neighborhoods do we want to build for the future? What kind of neighborhoods do we want to build for the future? Wouldn't stable young families, retirees, second homeowners, or permanent residents with investments in our community lead to a more secure and stable future? This can be our future, but only with the right decisions that you make. Our brand of Lake Luzerne can be better built with a more stable population, or it will deteriorate with a transitory population. We are now seeing an onslaught of short-term rentals, businesses running commercial enterprises in residential hamlets. And most of these are not our Lake Luzerne neighbors managing these businesses, but real estate operators of every size, most are which from outside of the town of Lake Luzerne, who are seeing the value of our brand name and selling these short-term vacation rentals. Most have no connection to the community. Most do not pay bed tax. Most have no interest in our town beyond collecting a rent check. And these are not the people who will fully utilize our businesses, maintain our community, build relationships with our people, send their kids to our schools, and hire our contractors. Your decision on keeping the character of our residential hamlet neighborhoods will have a great impact, preventing over-commercialization and ultimately building a better future for the community of Lake Luzerne. We do not want to lose our residency base to short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you,
That-
Howard.
Howard, don't leave, please.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
When he gets going, I want to ask you what you think about the zoning idea as a private citizen.
Okay.
It's on the website as a special town board meeting. So much now. So I think you can.
Good question for Howard once he gets going.
And by the way,
Oh,
by the way, Jim, I figured about 224 was a mistake on my part. That was Lake George's figures. I'm sorry. Hey, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Can't kill me for that. Don't take my sheet.
Okay, well,
All right.
good to
Okay,
go?
Yeah.
something for Howard.
Yeah, Howard, I got a question for you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot if you want to collect your thoughts and email them to us or whatever. What are your thoughts about the combination approach? One is come up with a regulation, right number of septic system, right number of parking spots and all that, and then also zoning.
Mhm.
What do you, from your perspective, How do you think the zoning would be a good idea, a bad idea?
Mhm. You know, it's something I wouldn't answer in a shoot from the hip manner, but what I'm encouraged with, even just with asking the question, is sidebar, take a look at the process. The Town of Lake Luzerne Town Board, Planning Board, Zoning Board, and the Comprehensive Plan Committee are all taking a look at this in a comprehensive way to come up with a solution. You know, the wheels of government run slowly, but the good news here is that we have people who are attentively taking a look at this. It's not an easy process. I basically don't have an answer for you right now, but what I'm saying is at least we're looking at it. We're looking at it with the right way. We're questioning it. You got to question. We're taking a look at what other towns in our region, excuse me, we're taking a look at what other towns in our region are doing. And I think hopefully with the input of all parties, we'll come up with the right answer. I think, you know, sometimes it's easy to criticize government, but as painful as the process can sometimes be, most of the time you come up with the right answer. It may take a fair amount of time, and it can be a cumbersome process, but you're at the start right now. I've heard the date that you've bet around, you know, January 1st. Do we or don't we want to grandfather things in? You don't have to grandfather things in unless you want to. You've got competent legal counsel who could help to guide this decision. So I'm sorry, I can't give a more specific answer, but I do want to think about that question. That's an important question, Councilman Niles, and it's a question that you should be asking, hopefully every advocate for any piece of this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else
I received a Word version of Warrensburg's regulation. So if we want to start,
you mean the one we have now?
yeah, I have it in Word,
And
which means we could use that and save a whole lot of typing if we want to start putting one together.
well, that's what I've been trying to do that too. I'm reading all of them and couldn't show you, but
mean,
I
we
try,
got
I try to write notes down
Yeah.
from each one of them, which I like and which I don't like, but you know, it's confusing proposition, so.
Yeah.
But we have to,
But I'm kind of,
we can't race through it, but we have to really start moving a little bit faster on it.
does it seem like that might be the next step for the regulation side of it, is to,
We need what we wanna, all of us wanna come up with in the public as far as the regulations. I mean, the little regulations, parking.
yeah,
You know, how many people could be in the house, the safety, those are the ones, change the zoning, that's
That's-
public hearings
that-
and all that stuff, and
Yep.
it takes time. And, but if we can come up with a general idea of the, you know, say, because I'm reading also from our planning and zoning board, they almost talk about the same things, a few changes here and there.
Yeah.
But if you incorporate them, and let's see if we can, like that little package, to move forward so that we can say anybody coming in starting January, well, you don't want to give too much of a further date because like Karen said, people will start buying up the houses. But we have to say, if you want, you get, how many calls do you get from realtors? You tell us that want to know what's our regulations on short-term rentals. So,
I would say that lately it has slowed down some during the COVID pandemic. I got them all the time, and it seems as though there, I mean, you drive around town, there are places for sale right now, but not a lot for sale like there had been. But the question, the question comes up quite frequently as, you know, do we have regulations? So,
well, what I'm suggesting is, if you guys think it's the right next step, is I'll take that Warrensburg one and start to modify it the way we've talked. If I don't know there was consensus, then I will list the 2 or 3 ideas. Just for example, the fine, how much is the fine? You know, I've heard it argued 200, 300, 500. But I'd be more than willing to do that if you guys think that's the next logical step.
I do. I even have that on the first one over here. It says short-term rental permits. For how long? I left the blank,
Yeah,
years, so,
Can I ask a question?
sure, anybody, yes.
Diane Powers. My understanding from the last planning board meeting was that the town board was going to decide this, but the meeting minutes from July 25th are not posted and the YouTube video is not available. So I'm not even sure what was discussed at that meeting because it's not available. Can you answer that question as to why the YouTube video is not posted for July 25th board meeting?
All right, go ahead.
I cannot hear that person, whoever's speaking.
On
oh,
the planning board on the 24th,
No, I'm talking about the board
July.
meeting, the workshop for July 25th.
Yeah, that we didn't
our
have,
Zoom operator was
the
not
operator
available that night.
wasn't able to come that night, and we do not have the YouTube video. then.
Okay, that's fine, but there should also be meeting minutes that were taken that could be posted. And I was on the Town of Luzerne website and there haven't been board minutes that have been posted since May.
At the present time, which a lot of people aren't aware of at the present time, unless they've straightened it out since Friday. We're having a problem with our Gmail and things of this sort.
Yeah.
And getting things posted.
Yeah.
This is-
Okay, because it seemed like at the planning board and then it was going to be presented, the recommendations were to follow.
It takes a few days, even
That-
if the computers are working normally, to get those minutes transcribed and onto the computer website. I mean,
That's
it-
okay. I just was.
turn it around, even a
just-
week is a lot, but that's what
just-
happened with that particular meeting was we didn't have Zoom availability that night and the minutes have not, I don't know if they've been typed out yet, but they've not been posted on the website yet because we have
Okay,
computer issues.
just
Yeah,
surprised to
Just
hear
so,
that
I'm not
the
making
planning,
excuses for anybody,
plan-
but so a meeting like we
is-
have tonight probably takes 6 to 8 hours
I
to
understand,
listen
but-
and type, and it can't do it all in one day, but it
but
takes,
that's why I'm,
it
that-
takes a few weeks.
excuse me, 1 second. That's why I'm just surprised to hear that you're now, because the planning board met and recommended a number of things, including most of the Bolton plan. And so now you're talking about reopening this discussion and doing something along the lines of Warrensburg? Is that
no,
No, that's not what we're saying. We're
Yeah.
just
No,
trying to
no,
get them
no.
all together now. Bolton, Warrensburg, the planning board, the zoning board, and take all those now and put them out on a list that we can like kind
Okay.
of vote on.
and
That's
whose
what-
responsibility will be to pass or present a resolution? The board, the town board,
Yep, that's our
Yeah, that-
responsibility.
the town board?
legal
Okay.
would be involved there.
And legal counsel too.
Okay, and then the last time.
We're
legal
several
counsel-
hearings away from that process.
Understood. Last meeting, just a question I had, and he's not there, but legal counsel had mentioned that he was representing a woman or someone from town of Queensbury and had mentioned that the town planning board or the town board would be hearing from someone from Queensbury. In what capacity is the Lake Luzerne town attorney representing that person?
I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the answer to that question. I know he's afraid it might be some kind of a conflict, but he was supposed to be here tonight. He called me at 3 o'clock today, told me he couldn't make it. So.
In what capacity? In what capacity is he representing that person? Is she?
I don't
is
know. I
she-
can't give you that answer, and I wouldn't hesitate, to try to give it to you.
Okay, if we could get that, I think that's important for us all to know. I don't know if she's an actual, someone who short-term rents in the town of Queensbury and is opposed to the regulations, or whether his firm is actually representing someone else. I don't know. but he did mention it.
I don't know if it's him personally, but it might be his firm.
Yes,
So, all right, thank you.
thank you.
All right, anybody else? How about we get a motion adjourned?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
thank you for coming. Thank you for staying on it.
Yeah, thanks for the comment.